All right, are you ready to explore how life works?
I am, from the tiniest pieces to the entire planet.
It's like we can zoom in and out like a microscope.
It really is. And that understanding is so important whether you're into, how your own body works or the newest science or how ecosystems survive.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Let's start with the molecular level. We're talking atoms and molecules here. It's kind of mind-blowing how something so small can be the basis for life.
It is. Think about this. The carbon in your cells is the same stuff that makes diamonds.
Wow, really?
Yeah. But in life, carbon, it bonds with other elements like hydrogen and oxygen and nitrogen to make the building blocks of life. Proteins, DNA, carbohydrates, and lipids.
So it's kind of like a Lego set.
You could say that. Atoms are the bricks, and those biomolecules are the creations you build with them.
Makes sense. But it's not just about static structures, is it?
No, not at all. It's all about interactions. These molecules are constantly breaking apart, forming new bonds. It's like a symphony of chemical reactions that keeps you alive.
Whoa. Okay, so we've got these molecules, and they're super active. What's the next level?
Now we zoom into the cellular level. That's where molecules get together and make cells. Every living thing is made of cells.
So if the molecules are the building blocks, are the cells like little cities
Mm-hmm.
with different compartments and workers doing their jobs?
That's a great way to think about it. Imagine a cell as a city, right? It's got power plants, that's the mitochondria. It has a library, which is the nucleus with the DNA. And it's got workers, the proteins, doing all sorts of jobs.
It's so organized.
It really is.
And are all cells like the same?
Actually, they're not. There are two main types, prokaryotes and eukaryotes.
Eukaryotes.
Yeah, so prokaryotes are like bacteria. They're simpler. They don't have a nucleus or other membrane-bound organelles. Eukaryotes are more complex. Those are like plant and animal cells. They've got a nucleus and a bunch of organelles all working together.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've gone from atoms to molecules to cells. It feels like we're building something amazing here. What happens when cells start teaming up?
Well, then we get into tissues and organs. Just like a city has different neighborhoods, multicellular organisms, they need different tissues to do different jobs.
Right, like a bunch of cells working together. Kind of like a well-coordinated team.
Exactly.
So what kind of teams are we talking about?
Well, in animals, there are four main types: epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous tissue.
What do they each do?
Well, epithelial tissue, it forms linings and glands. Connective tissue supports and binds everything together. Muscle tissue, well, that's for movement. And nervous tissue sends signals all around the body.
Wow, a lot of specialists.
Yeah.
So how do these tissues all come together to make an organ?
Think of an organ like a structure made of different tissues. They all work together for one specific function.
I see.
Like your heart, for example. It's an organ that's made of muscle tissue to pump blood, and connective tissue to hold it together, and nervous tissue to regulate its rhythm.
Makes sense. And so a bunch of organs working together would be...
An organ system, like take the circulatory system, for example. It's got the heart, blood vessels, blood. They all work together to transport nutrients and oxygen everywhere.
This is amazing. So we've gone from atoms to molecules to cells to tissues, and now organs and systems. We're seeing a complex living machine being built here.
It really is. And this brings us to the next level up.
Okay, what's that?
The organismal level. That's a whole living being.
A plant, a bacterium, a person.
Exactly. It's pretty incredible to think about, right? All those levels, from atoms to organs, come together to make something that lives, breathes, and interacts with the world. You're absolutely right. And at this level, you can see how all the lower levels work together so well. Think about it. Your body keeps its temperature stable, digests food, you think thoughts, and it responds to the environment. It's also incredibly precise.
It's like a perfectly tuned orchestra. Every instrument playing its part perfectly.
But what's the purpose of all this complexity?
The ultimate goal. Survival and passing on life to the next generation. Organisms work to keep a stable internal environment. We call that homeostasis. And they try to pass on their genes to the next generation through reproduction.
So it's about more than just staying alive. It's about ensuring life goes on. This whole journey has been incredible. But I think this is only the beginning, right?
You're right. We've only just started exploring how life is organized. There are even bigger scales to consider.
So what happens when we zoom out even more? What's beyond a single organism?
Well, that's when we get into populations and ecosystems. Individuals interact with each other and with their environment, forming complex relationships.
That sounds fascinating. A whole community of organisms interacting, competing, cooperating, all within their environment. It's like a big dance.
That's a great way to put it. And understanding those interactions is really important to understand the bigger picture of life on Earth. I'm hooked. We've gone from the building blocks of life to the grand stage of ecosystems. It's clear that everything's connected. It's an amazing tapestry of life. What's next?
Well, we've laid the groundwork now. Let's dive deeper into some of the fascinating processes that occur at each level. We could explore how cells talk to each other, how energy flows through ecosystems, or even unravel the mysteries of evolution. The journey's just getting started. So we've gone from atoms to ecosystems. That's like the foundation of how life is organized, right?
Yeah, it's amazing to think about.
It is. Now let's get into the processes that really make life happen at each level.
Yeah, let's dive deeper. We've seen the structures, but now I want to know how this whole incredible machine works.
Okay, so let's start with metabolism. That's like the core of how life is dynamic. Remember all those busy molecules at the molecular level?
Yeah, they're constantly building and breaking things down like a microscopic construction crew.
Exactly. That's metabolism in action. It's how organisms get and use energy.
Okay, I see.
So you break down complex molecules to release energy. We call that catabolism. And then you build up new molecules for growth and repair. That's anabolism.
So it's like a two-way street, breaking down for energy and then building up to maintain the organism. A balance between creating and destroying.
Precisely. And that's happening in every single cell of your body all the time.
Wow. It's mind-blowing to think about all that activity going on inside us.
Yeah.
But how do cells know what to build and when to break things down? Where do they get the instructions for this intricate dance of metabolism?
That's where DNA comes in. It's the blueprint of life. DNA is a molecule that's in the nucleus of every eukaryotic cell. It holds the instructions for, well, everything the cell does.
Right, the famous double helix.
Yeah.
Like a spiral staircase with all the secrets of life. But how do the secrets actually turn into action?
Those secrets are genes. They're like sections of DNA that code for specific proteins.
Okay, so what do proteins do?
They do so much. They're like the workhorses of the cell. They carry out tons of functions, including helping with those metabolic reactions we talked about.
So DNA gives the instructions and proteins do the work.
Exactly.
What an amazing team. But how does the information go from the DNA to the protein?
It's called gene expression. Think of DNA like a giant cookbook with recipes for proteins.
Okay, I like that.
When the cell needs a specific protein, it makes a copy of that recipe, and that's the RNA. Then the RNA acts like a blueprint to build the protein, just like a chef follows a recipe.
That's a great analogy. So it's DNA to RNA to protein, and each protein has a specific job based on its instructions.
Absolutely. Some proteins are structural. They give support and shape, like collagen that gives our skin strength. Others are enzymes. They help with chemical reactions. And some are involved in signaling, like hormones. They regulate all sorts of bodily functions.
Wow. So many different jobs for proteins, all thanks to the instructions in our DNA.
Yeah.
But how does that information get passed on from one generation to the next?
That's where cell division comes in. It's how cells make copies of themselves.
Right.
There are two main types, mitosis and meiosis.
Oh, yeah, I remember those words from biology class. Remind me what they are.
Okay, so mitosis is how most of the cells in your body divide. It makes two daughter cells that are exactly like the parent cell. They each get a full copy of the DNA. That's how we grow and repair tissues.
So mitosis is like cloning a cell.
Exactly. But meiosis, that's a special kind of cell division that makes gametes.
Gametes?
Yeah, sperm and egg cells. These cells have only half the number of chromosomes as the parent cell.
Okay, so meiosis is for sexual reproduction. But why do the gametes only have half the chromosomes?
Because when a sperm fertilizes an egg, their chromosomes combine. So the new individual gets a unique mix of genetic material from both parents.
Oh, that's why we're all different. We all get a unique mix of our parents' genes.
Right. And that mixing is super important for evolution. That's the process where species change over time.
So we've gone from molecules with DNA and proteins to cells with cell division, and now to evolution. It's amazing how it's all connected.
It really is. And you know what drives evolution? This powerful force called natural selection.
Natural selection.
Yeah. Organisms that are better suited to their environment, they survive and reproduce more, so they pass those advantageous traits on to their kids.
So it's like a competition where the organisms with the best adaptations win. Survival of the fittest.
You could say that, but it's not just about competition. Cooperation is important too.
Oh, right. Like the bacteria that live in our gut, they help us digest food. Everybody wins.
Exactly. Or bees that pollinate flowers, helping plants reproduce. So life isn't just about surviving, it's also about working together.
It's amazing how this balance of competition and cooperation shapes life on Earth.
It does. And this idea goes all the way to the ecosystem level too. All the different species interact with each other and their environment, forming these complex webs of relationships.
Yeah, we talked about ecosystems before. It's like a big tapestry, everything is connected. But how do those connections help keep an ecosystem healthy?
Well, every species plays a role. Even losing one species can have a big impact on the whole system. Like, uh, imagine removing a keystone from an arch, the whole thing might collapse.
Wow, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, so that's why protecting biodiversity is so important.
Biodiversity.
The variety of life on Earth, it's not just about saving individual species, it's about protecting the whole web of life that keeps us all alive.
I see. We need to protect the whole system, not just parts of it.
Exactly. Biodiversity is crucial for ecosystems to work properly, and it's important for humans too. It gives us food, clean air and water, medicines, and tons of other benefits.
Wow, so understanding all these levels of organization in biology helps us appreciate how everything is connected, right?
You got it. It's a story that's super complex, but also incredibly beautiful and resilient.
It really is. It's mind-blowing.
And, this understanding is more important than ever. We're facing some big challenges in the 21st century, like climate change and new diseases.
Right.
We need to find solutions that consider how everything is connected. Living things and their environment. We need to think like biologists.
So it's not just about studying biology for the sake of knowledge. It's about using that knowledge to make smart decisions about our impact on the planet.
Exactly. Understanding how life works at all these different levels, that helps us come up with ways to protect the planet and ensure a sustainable future for everyone. We can learn to live with nature instead of against it.
This has been incredibly eye-opening. We've covered so much, from molecules to evolution to ecosystems. What a journey.
So we've explored these levels of biological organization from like the tiniest molecules all the way to ecosystems, and we've gotten into these amazing processes that make life work, right?
It's been incredible.
It has. Now I want to shift gears a little and focus on a concept that's super important for how all organisms function: homeostasis.
Homeostasis, yeah, I've heard that word before. It's about like balance and stability within an organism.
You got it. It's an organism's ability to keep its internal environment stable even when the outside world is changing, like an internal thermostat.
So even though the world around us is constantly changing, our bodies are working to keep everything inside stable. Why is that so important?
Well, that stability is really important for cells and tissues and organs to work properly. It's like the foundation for all those complex processes we've talked about.
Okay, I'm starting to see why homeostasis is so important.
Yeah.
But how does it actually work? What keeps our bodies in balance?
One of the key mechanisms is feedback loops. It's like a system where the output of a process affects the input. So there's this constant monitoring and adjustment.
That sounds a bit abstract. Can you give me like a real world example?
Okay, sure. Imagine you're running on a hot day. Your body temperature starts to go up, right? Well, sensors in your skin and brain, they pick up on that change and send signals to your hypothalamus. That's the part of the brain that controls temperature.
So it's like an alarm system, like, hey, it's getting too hot in here.
Exactly. And the hypothalamus says, time to sweat. As the sweat evaporates from your skin, it cools you down. Then other sensors detect that you're cooling down and they tell the hypothalamus to, ease up on the sweat production. That's a feedback loop, this constant back and forth.
Wow, that's so cool. So our bodies are always making these tiny adjustments to stay at the right temperature.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other examples of these feedback loops?
Oh, tons. Similar loops control your blood sugar, blood pressure, pH balance, so many things. It's like all these finely tuned systems working together to keep everything in equilibrium.
It's amazing how smoothly it all works.
Yeah.
But what happens when these systems don't work right?
Well, that's when you can get health problems. Like if your blood sugar regulation isn't working, that can lead to diabetes. Or if your blood pressure regulations is off, you can get hypertension.
So homeostasis isn't just some abstract idea. It's really important for our health.
You got it. Knowing about homeostasis helps us develop treatments to fix things when they go wrong.
Wow. This has been an incredible journey. From atoms to ecosystems, from evolution to homeostasis, it's like we've taken a whirlwind tour of the world of biology.
And I hope you've gained a a deeper appreciation for just how complex, beautiful, and interconnected life really is.
I definitely have. It's amazing to think that we've covered so much, and yet we've only just scratched the surface.
Absolutely. Biology is always evolving. There are always new things to discover.
This has been such an enlightening conversation. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us and inspiring us to keep exploring the wonders of life.
It's been my pleasure. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this adventure. I hope this has sparked your curiosity and maybe inspired you to learn even more about the amazing world of biology.